Kicking, boxing, BJJ, endurance, intelligence. All of these things and more are essential to being a top-level fighter. But skill by skill, attribute by attribute, which single fighter has the best of each on the UFC roster today? Kicking, Yair Rodriguez. Well, to kick things off in the most literal way possible, who exactly is the most talented kicker in the sport today? Well, while guys like Stephen Thompson, Cyril Gane, and Edson Barboza deserve major credit for their own talents, Yair Rodriguez arguably puts it all together better than anyone. He's a powerful kicker and a dynamic offensive fighter with his legs, but it's the sheer speed at which he delivers his shots that really singles him out. Not only does he have more kicks in his arsenal than anyone at the top levels of MMA right now, but he also fires them off so quickly and with such minimal telegraphing that you have barely any time to react to them. Chin, Max Holloway. It says a lot about the character of the living legend Max Holloway that he openly admitted that Justin Gaethje scored a knockdown on him in their recent UFC 300 Classic. But after nearly a decade in the UFC, Holloway has only ever been dropped on this one occasion, and it barely seemed to trouble him, despite the fact that he was taking on an absolute hammer-up in an entirely new weight class. We gotta give Yuri Prochazka a mention, even though he's been KO'd in the past more than once. Plus, Jon Jones is definitely a close runner-up, as well as the freakish ability of Marvin Vettori to eat punches. But Holloway's also the fighter who's absorbed the most strikes in UFC history, yet he is as resilient as ever. Cardio, Merab Dvalishvili. The cardio discussion would have been pretty interesting if we had made this video a few years back, but once Merab Dvalishvili stepped into the octagon and started putting that insane pace on his fellow bantamweights, the conversation ceased to be important. Merab is a freak of nature who's weaponized cardio to a greater extent than any fighter in UFC history, and he takes this spot without much competition. Power, Derek Lewis. With Francis Ngannou now firmly out of the picture, the veteran Derek Lewis is pretty clearly the winner when it comes to raw punching power. He holds the UFC record for the most knockouts in the promotion's history, and while there are always powerful heavyweights making their climb into the elite levels, we're gonna pick the Black Beast over guys like Sergey Pavlovich and Tom Aspinall, simply because he has the resume to back it up. And on the eye test alone, Lewis looks like he has this one in the bag. Remember, if you're enjoying this content, be sure to leave a like and a comment before subscribing to the channel so you don't miss a single upload. Wrestling, Islam Makhachev. While there are some phenomenal wrestlers in MMA right now who have elite backgrounds in their base sport, whether that freestyle, folk style, Greco-Roman, or even certain Sambo practitioners, we're talking purely about wrestling within mixed martial arts. No fighter in the sport today has channeled their talents better than the lightweight king, Islam Makhachev. Like his predecessor Khabib before him, everyone who fights Islam knows that he will eventually attempt to score a takedown, and yet they can't stop it. Makhachev's system of wrestling is an advanced network of actions and reactions that is a total nightmare for pretty much anyone who comes into contact with him. Fight IQ, Jon Jones. The fight IQ of Jon Jones might just be his greatest asset, the thing that has kept him from suffering a clear loss for his entire career. The only things his critics can point to is a pair of close decisions that could have gone either way. Jon has spent well over a decade fighting only in 25-minute title fights, outsmarting the greatest fighters of several eras with watertight game planning and a truly unsurpassed ability to make reads and adaptations on the job. There's a reason why Jon was able to continue living his party boy lifestyle and still defeat some of the best in the world. It's because it's a legit fighting supercomputer, and to this day, even as he loses a touch of speed as he ages, his fight IQ has only been bolstered by his long years of experience. Takedown defense, Jose Aldo. When it comes to takedown defense, he could have very easily given the nod to Jon Jones too. But in his long and storied career, Jose Aldo Jr. is without question the most amazing takedown defense specialist we've ever seen. Aldo is just so damn athletic and so insanely technical when it comes to stifling his opponent's ability to get him to the mat. There were years where we could only imagine what Aldo's bottom game looked like, because we certainly weren't ever going to see it in a live fight. Aldo remains the gold standard in this category. Leg kicks, Alex Pereira. Aldo is also in the leg kick discussion, joining guys like Justin Gaethje and Edson Barboza on the current roster. But no one in the sport right now has that lethal touch quite like Alex Pereira. This guy's overall striking game is just on a different level, but in MMA, his ability to go to work with leg kicks has been a tremendous part of his success. We all know about Poaton's legendary left hook, but there's an argument to be made that his leg kicking and calf kicking are right up there with it in terms of its importance to his fighting approach. Pereira's kicks open the door for his left hook. You can see that in virtually every one of his fights so far. Boxing, Max Holloway. The boxing category's tough because you do have to look at the pedigree of someone like Poatan, just as the aforementioned Jose Aldo is a real contender. Petr Yan, Sean O'Malley, Dustin Poirier, the list goes on. But we gotta give the title to Max Holloway. He called for it himself during that masterpiece he turned in against Calvin Kattar. But the fact that in his last 3 fights he badly dropped Arnold Allen, KO'd the Korean zombie stiff, and flatlined Justin Gaethje up in weight proves that Holloway's sharp technique and insane volume is now bolstered by legit power. And that's a really bad combination for any of his future opponents. BJJ, Charles Oliveira. The BJJ question's an interesting one. Like our wrestling category, there are indeed better overall grapplers in the sport right now than Charles Oliveira, as well as grapplers with way better credentials from the BJJ scene. But the record books don't lie. Stu Bronx has weaponized his submission ability to a way greater extent than any fighter in UFC history, tapping out legitimately world-class fighters and making the idea of going to the ground with him a real risk. Sure, position for position, there are indeed better grapplers, but Oliveira has used BJJ as a primary weapon better than anyone to have ever done it. That's why he gets our pick. Striking defense, Jon Jones. We were very seriously considering giving this one to Sean Strickland, and he remains a close second, but the stats on Jon Jones' striking defense have only improved as he aged. Jones has gotten his bell rung in the octagon, sure, but he's never once been dropped or even badly dazed. You can put that down to a great chin and a total mastery of striking defense. And yes, a lot of that is down to the length of his arms, but that's just part of the Jon Jones experience. The way he controls range, blocks with his arms, rolls with punches, it all comes together to make this man an incredibly awkward fighter. And though he's taken on many fearsome power punchers in his time, Jones has come out looking pretty clean. Creativity, Yuri Prochazka. Not since the great Anderson Silva have we seen a high-level fighter with as much creativity as Yuri Prochazka. He is so difficult to get a read on that it almost seems like he himself has no idea what he's going to do next. Prochazka dips and ducks in and out of range, throwing punches from the oddest angles. And while sure, he gets hit, his chin, toughness, and immeasurable self-belief allow him to fight his type of fight and have huge success doing so. Prochazka's one of the strangest fighters to ever do it, and yet he's a former UFC champion who may just have booked himself another title fight after UFC 300. A true one-in-a-million talent who just so happens to be among the most entertaining mixed martial artists to have ever competed in that famous octagon.